Yo, what is up, guys? It's your boy Bernie here along with Brad.
What's up, y'all?
And today, guys, we got a couple stories to talk about. And of course, the big story that we got to talk about, of course, are episodes 7 and 8 of The Last Dance. But before we talk about the Michael Jordan through the retirement and the other championships they won and going against our Sonics, which we'll go really into, and I kind of want to talk about that part of it later. We first have to talk about what the NBA is going to do, and the NBA has sent ballots to NBA teams to vote on the prospects on who will receive invites to the 2020 Combine. But we know that the Combine right now is indefinitely suspended. And Brad, the question I have for you, for players such as Nico Mannion, many of those type of players that are trying to enter the draft and are still going to remain in the draft, do you think that there are some prospects that should hold out on going pro so soon?
Yeah, just because, the combine can help you out a lot if teams are iffy on you. Um, like I saw Mac McClung, the junior at Georgetown, he declared for the draft and then he pulled his name out. Maybe because of the circumstances, he won't be able to show off what he's best at. His athleticism is crazy. So if he doesn't get the chance to show like his vertical shuttle time, all that at the combine, which could boost his draft stock, since he's kind of, not in the upper echelon of point guard prospects, then it would hurt him. So he chose to go back to school. So I could see Nico Mannion kind of deciding to do the same thing, but I don't think he will, just because he got so much hype and notoriety at Arizona this year.
Yeah, I mean, when it comes to guys like Nico Mannion and Mac McClung, who, were kind of these ball is life mixtape aficionados, that we kind of grown to watch throughout, like I said, Ball is Life and many of these other news outlets. But the thing that because I've watched Nico Mannion play live before, because our team played in, I can't remember, it's the Palm Springs, can't remember, the Rancho Mirage, there you go, the Rancho Mirage tournament, where he went against Matter Day, against David Ashew and those two giants. Basically, they looked like Kevin McHale wannabes, like Kroger brand Kevin
Oh my
McHale's, just because they're so long and they have the goggles and whatnot. They're good players, so I'm not trying to disrespect them in that way. But the thing that I noticed with Nico Mannion is that, yes, he could score the rock in high school. He could score the rock in these kind of games. But the real question is going to be, is he going to be doing it against the top echelon NBA players? Because that's who he's going to be facing, and that's the competition that he's going to be most voted for, especially if he's going to be, like you said, I think you talked about him being like a top 15, top 20 pick. That's where I have my concerns about Nico Mannion in the league. And, not only for Nico Mannion, but other players that, maybe me and Brad can talk about them a little bit more in a different video. If you guys want to watch that, let us know in the comment section down below, because I would love to get your opinion, Brad, on some of these NBA prospects. I know I've done a little bit of a mini series with some of these players, but I would love to talk more in depth about the lower echelon players and see where they rank and compare and see if they can make it in the NBA. But like you, Brad, I just don't think that all these guys guys that are very iffy and questionable, and guys that, were once projected to be like a top 10 pick are now projected to be top 15, top 20. Maybe they should think about it. Maybe if they want to go the G League route, maybe do it that way. But for guys like Nico Mannion and all those other players that are kind of iffy and they're in school right now at Arizona or whatever school that they're at, I think that they should really take a look at themselves in the mirror and think about what they need to do to get better, or if, whether it's to go into the NBA or whether it's just to stay.
Yeah, I mean, the way I see it is, um, it's all about the work you've put in, obviously, but also timing and opportunity. So the timing is probably perfect for Nico right now. This draft class isn't that strong, and next year's draft class is going to be a lot better. So he could get, picked a little higher up than he normally would be in this draft class. And then maybe he's just thinking, okay, once I get in the league, I can prove how good I am and that I actually belong here. Whereas if he waits and goes in a better draft next year, he might go undrafted, or he might get drafted really low, get a crappy contract.
Right.
So, I mean, it's kind of like when Tyus Jones left Duke. Like, nobody saw him as a one and done player, but he balled out so much in the tournament, he just kind of had to go. It was the perfect opportunity.
Yeah, and just kind of looking at what we have here with Nico Mannion and many of the other players, I think you're right. I mean, there is cause for pause for some of these guys, but I think you could also make the argument, which you made it perfectly, is that this is such a weaker draft class than we've normally seen. I mean, obviously there's some good players in this class, but not as strong as they're going to be in the next couple of years. So I think, like you said, it's going to be a very interesting situation as players that were probably not so high on the totem pole, decide, let's go to the draft. Maybe teams will take a chance. They haven't really scouted me. They're drafting the unpredictable and the unknown, and really more drafting on the projectability of someone. So maybe that's what we're going to be seeing from these guys.
Yeah, yeah, like James Wiseman. I've watched a lot of tape on James Wiseman, and it seems like with him, a lot of it is potential. Same with LaMelo, a lot of LaMelo's potential. Although I like LaMelo's intangibles, he can be like a good floor general. Control the tempo of the game, and he's box office. He has his name and everything that comes attached with it.
Yeah, I mean, I've gone
So
at Nas.
a team like
Yeah,
the
yeah.
Knicks would need him.
What were you gonna say, Brad?
Oh no, go ahead. I was just saying how like a team like the Knicks would want to take LaMelo so they can market him in a big market already and kind of get some attention.
Yeah, I mean, I've gone at nauseum, and I actually have two videos on those two guys. But if you want to talk about them more, I would love to in a different video, kind of maybe talking about the draft class and who are our best, who we like a lot, who do we dislike a lot in terms of that way. So maybe we can do that sometime soon. This is just kind of off the cuff. Didn't really tell Brad about it, but I'd love to discuss that actually because, like I said, there's a lot of interesting players in this draft class, and just like you, I've talked about LaMelo Ball, I've talked about James Wiseman and their potential, and many other things like that. But like you said, this is going to be an unprecedented time. This draft class is going to be remembered not for, they'll be remembered for the great players, but I think it's going to also be remembered for what's going on with the world right now. And like you said, this could be a beneficial to players that are unknown, players that teams haven't really scouted because they thought they were going to stay another year, and teams are going to maybe some of these lower teams like the Timberwolves and teams that haven't really vied for success for very long. The Knicks, for example, are probably a perfect one as well. They're going to take risks and they're going to take chances on
Yeah.
getting players that maybe they haven't scouted. Like I said, this is going to be a very interesting situation.
Yeah, exactly. I think some prospects are going to take advantage of it, um, because also while prospects view the combine as helpful, to other prospects it's kind of dumb. They're just like, okay, I don't need to take measurements. I don't need, I can hoop. I can play basketball. I know how. Like Monte Ellis, I think he had one of the slowest shuttle times for his combine class. Comes to the NBA and his nickname is the Mississippi Bullet, one of the quickest guys to guard off the dribble. So it goes both ways. It'll be interesting to just see how it plays out.
Yeah, exactly. And speaking of, you know, prospects and everything like that, I think we have to move on to the Last Stand episodes, number 7 and number 8. Probably one of the most talked about, just due to the fact that we kind of get a different perspective, I feel like, on Michael Jordan. So let's talk about episode number 7. This is kind of the episode where I felt like Michael Jordan kind of revealed that he really dislikes the notion, or like that perception, that he is a crappy teammate. Because at the end of that episode, and I'm sorry I'm skipping to the end of it, like we saw him almost tear up because of the way that people have kind of viewed him as a teammate and kind of viewed him as a person overall, and not like there's a difference between Michael Jordan the person and Michael Jordan the basketball player. And I think a lot of players, not players, but I should say fans like myself, you, and many others are kind of looking at him like as like a jerk.
Yeah, I mean, I can understand the competitive side. Like being on the court is completely different from being outside the court, and I can understand him wanting to push his teammates, using it to push his teammates. But I gotta still say he was kind of an asshole. Like hindsight is always 2020. He can go back and say, well, yeah, we did it to win, or I did it to win. But you also had a good team. I don't think you being an asshole is what solely pushed your team to wins. I just think you were kind of an asshole in general.
Yeah, and with Michael Jordan being the competitor that he is, the kind of jerk as you like to call him, and I like to call him too, because like the fact of the matter is, a lot of teammates didn't like Michael Jordan. I think a lot of people around the league didn't like Michael Jordan, and I think the reason for that, like you said, is because of his competitive fire. I mean, we kind of saw how Michael Jordan talked to his teammates. I mean, it was kind of derogatory, calling him a garden tool, just kind of all these like all these names and name calling. I mean, this to me signifies like why players like Kwame Brown didn't work out in the NBA is because of the fact that Michael Jordan pushed Kwame Brown at the age of 18 to want to be better, to want to be great, kind of saw some potential in Kwame Brown. I mean, I'm sorry, I'm going on a Kwame Brown tangent here, talking about The Last Dance, but I think it vibes perfectly, and it kind of shows an example of why Michael Jordan is such a bad GM and why he's not working in today's game. Because of the fact that because of the fact that he talks down to these players when in today's game that doesn't work anymore. That's not the strategy. Like even me coaching right now, that's not the strategy that I use to coach my players. And I don't even have NBA players. So, and I don't even have I have some college players, but I don't have, these like Duke, North Carolina teams. Like you can't talk down to these players today.
Yeah, people with egos. Yeah.
Like I want you to kind of expand on it for me, Brad, because I know that you're probably feeling the same way I do when it comes to this Michael Jordan competitiveness.
Yeah, I mean it's just crazy because in the interview they were interviewing BJ Armstrong, and it was funny. They asked him, was Michael, an asshole or a jerk? And he goes, he really thought about it. He said, was Michael an asshole? And he was kind of like in interview mode. He was like saying the question to himself, and then when he said it, he realized, you could see it. He like really thought back. Yo, this guy was an asshole. It took him like 2 minutes to answer his own question. You could see the memories on the fear on his face. Like his teammates really feared him. They didn't like coming to practice because they knew all hell breaks loose when Mike is there.
Yeah. It's kind of one of those things where, well, obviously we're talking about the end of the episode. We'll kind of go back to the first couple of things in a minute. But like you said, I mean, Michael Jordan, like the biggest takeaway from this is that Michael Jordan really hates the fact that perception of him is out there. And, for a guy that likes to protect his brand, protect his image, Jordan Brand, it's all about winning, competitiveness, being the machismo, alpha dog type of ordeal. I think he hates the fact that many of his teammates and many of his fans, maybe not many of his fans, but many of his teammates and people that are skeptical of him hate the fact that he has this perception about him because he wants to be I think he wants to fit in. I mean, we even saw this in the last couple of episodes when it comes to his dad. The fact that his older brother, got more attention than him. His brother was more loved than him when it came to it. And, obviously, Michael Jordan he felt like he always had to prove himself. And I think that's what Michael Jordan is missing the point with. And I think that's kind of what he's vying for. He's kind of wants that sort of trying to vindicate why he's acting the way he does.
Exactly. To me, it was kind of propaganda, to be honest. Like I said, hindsight's always 2020. He, at the end of the video, he tears up, and they cut the cameras, and it's kind of like, I believe I'm sure he feels like bad about it, but at the time, did he feel bad about it? No. And it just seems to me like he's kind of painting over what happened, trying to make it seem like he was different than who he really was. Propaganda. Jordan propaganda.
The Jordan propaganda, just like some like World War II poster or something.
Like, oh yeah, Jordan wasn't an asshole, guys. Come on, man. He did it to win. Like, come on, bro. Jordan could have killed one of his teammates and y'all would have been scared like, oh man, but he did it to win. He won 6 rings. Like, winning, guys, competitiveness. It really killed me when he said, like, was I an asshole? Yeah. But people would say that never won anything. And it's like, bro, like, you had a good team. You were just an asshole.
Exactly.
You had one of the best coaches in the league. You had one of, if not the best defender in the league. 2 of them, actually, between Scottie and Dennis Rodman. Top 3-point shooters with Paxson and Kerr, BJ Armstrong. Like, it's just, I don't see the need to be an asshole in that situation. I just think it was a mental thing.
Yeah, and just speaking of competitiveness, we got to talk about the first thing, and this is kind of what I was looking forward to in the documentary, was the gambling and the suspension. Well, not suspension, but the retirement. Just kind of like the conspiracy theory that's out there about Michael Jordan, the fact that he was forced to retire by the NBA, but kind of used it as a retirement due to gambling debts and gambling issues, and they addressed it. What did you make of that segment of the episode 7?
Yeah, I thought it was messed up that like the media took the story or took the news of his dad dying and tried to make a story out of it. That didn't sit right with me. Even if you have your own little theories or whatever, critique him on basketball and write articles on basketball. Don't take his personal life and try and flip it and gain some clout off of it or whatever. That didn't sit right with me.
Yeah, and just kind of rewatching that and kind of realizing the kind of the pain and the misfortunes of what happened with his dad, and also just kind of what the media took from it. It's kind of shady, and I feel like the media has still, I mean, this is just my opinion, and this is going way off topic. I feel like the media still does it to this day, with many athletes, many players, and many people that are just in the spotlight in pop culture or whatever it is, taking clips, and that's kind of the society we live in today. And even back then, I mean, I feel like things haven't changed from the media's perspective from then until now. Obviously, we don't talk about it. Obviously, we talk about it a lot more than we did back then. But like you said, I mean, I think that it was unfair for the media to kind of jump to that conclusion of really going from NBA, Michael Jordan playing great NBA games, and then going to, yeah, Michael Jordan's gambling addiction is what got his dad killed. And, obviously, reading the conspiracies, if you go down the YouTube rabbit hole, there's a lot of videos on that kind of conspiracy theory. But kind of rewatching this and kind of seeing it from everybody's perspective, like everybody, yeah, it's not true.
Yeah, it doesn't even make any sense because in the earlier episodes we saw Michael, paying his debts. So, and he had money and he paid his debts. So how is that even a feasible theory that you could come up with?
Yeah.
Same with the theory that David Stern suspended him. I thought that was just crazy. Why is he going to suspend his most marketable player?
Yeah, I mean, we know David Stern, and we'll kind of talk about him as we get to the Supersonics portion of this video. But like you said, I mean, David Stern, his cow, the kind of the breadwinner of the NBA at that time was Michael Jordan. And why would David Stern want Michael Jordan to retire? Michael Jordan with the shoes, with the NBA money. I mean, the DVDs, the CD, or I guess it's VHSs at the time, the VHSs, and just all this profitable marketability with David Stern. And well, I said not David Stern, Michael Jordan, with David Stern trying to kind of, his golden goose. Like, why would David Stern want him to go, especially to a different sport too? Like David Stern, if anything, would want him to be a retired basketball player, still marketing off of his greatness, just like any capitalistic business wants to be, and that's what the NBA is at the end of the day. But I don't get why people think that David Stern would want him to retire and not keep playing.
Yeah, secretly suspend him. That's just funny. That doesn't even make sense.
Yeah, and then kind of going on to that from his retirement, he kind of moved on to the baseball career. They briefly talked about it a little bit. I don't really have that much to say other than like Michael Jordan he was an average baseball player, and it's not to the fact that he couldn't have been a great player. To me, I think what it was is that, you haven't played that sport in 14 years. Like, obviously, your body, you've trained it for basketball. You haven't trained it for baseball. So, obviously, you're not going to be this awesome, he's not a Bo Jackson. And I think those are rare athletes, or a Deion Sanders. Like, those are rare athletes. You're not, those are like one in a million. Like, not every great athlete is going to be good at the sport. Yeah. So, what do you have to make about the baseball career that was Michael Jordan, the short-lived one?
Yeah, see, I thought in the documentary it was more propaganda because they were saying oh yeah, if Michael stuck with baseball, he would have made the major leagues, no doubt. Like, come on, guys. We've seen how hard it is to do. Like you said, Bo Jackson, Deion Sanders, they're 1 in a million athletes, freaks of nature. That does not come along. You cannot just tell me if Michael had stuck to it, he would have been good in the major leagues. Come on, guys. That's propaganda for real.
Yeah,
Um,
and keep going. Sorry.
but I do respect how hard he trained, and I think that's insane. You play basketball for 14 years in the NBA, and then try and switch your body immediately to train for baseball, like having to hit a ball going 80 miles per hour with a bat. The training for that's insane, and he put his body through a lot.
Yeah, and I mean, if you even think about it, the fact that in order to get into the Hall of Fame, you have to hit 3 out of 10 baseballs, like a 30% or a .3 batting average just to even get to the Hall of Fame, and that's hard.
Yeah,
In
yeah.
basketball, you can't shoot that percentage. And I know that's kind of off topic, but it's like the degree of difficulty, especially like I said, when you haven't trained for baseball and for God knows how long, like I said, 14 years, 15 years, maybe even longer. It's a different muscle. It's a different. You have to use. There's different muscles used, and the fact
Hmm.
that many people kind of expected Michael Jordan to be this awesome player, and he did have a good hitting streak until you know Michael Jordan had to learn how to hit the breaking ball, and the breaking ball is definitely a hard pitch to hit in baseball, and teams and managers saw that okay, Michael Jordan can hit any ball, but once you give him a fastball or once you give him a little bit of junk that they throw at him, then he's not going to be able to hit it.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why I didn't like that they tried to go back and just paint over again, saying, "Oh yeah, guys, Jordan was good at everything. Like, if he wanted to, he could have stuck with this guy." It's like, no, that's not true.
Yeah, and then let's move on to the next episode, which of course was the Michael Jordan and the Supersonics. This is also kind of, I believe this was the B.J. Armstrong episode as well, right? Or was that episode 7 as well?
I think it was the BJ Armstrong episode too, where he was going off and yeah, in that series. Yeah.
Yeah, 37 points, and then Michael Jordan was like, "All right, it's time to turn up," essentially.
Yeah. Woo.
What did you make of episode 8? And I have a lot to say about the David Stern and all that stuff. But what did you make of episode 8?
Was the BJ Armstrong game the game where he sat in the locker room smoking a cigar after with a bat in his hand listening to music?
Yeah,
Because
with
that was
my
crazy to me. I was like, yo, this man is a psychopath. He's just thinking about how he's gonna tear this team down and this person down like limb from limb. And then he went and did it.
yeah, it almost kind of reminded me of like a movie or like something scripted from Hollywood or anime, like just
Yeah.
kind of maniacal and kind of like almost like a super villain in a way where it's just like yeah like I'm gonna or like a vigilante more like it like just how am I going to destroy this team and has a bat in his hand like I'm just wondering like where did he get the bat from. That's my first question. Where did he get it from? why
Yeah.
why was he allowed to have it? And third, he delivered on his promise that he was going to destroy them.
Hmm. And like I mean personally I think it's a little wild that but I can see it. I like it. He would find something or somebody to lock onto and use it to push himself. And he used the BJ Armstrong talking and all that to push himself.
Yeah.
It's like what's that saying about don't poke the bear? BJ Armstrong should have been quiet.
Yeah, I mean, it's just kind of, it's an interesting situation. Also from this episode, and we talked about it, Brad, and I kind of want to talk to you about it again. The competition that Michael Jordan faced in the East is just about the same competition that LeBron faced in the East as well. Like, I don't want to hear anymore from these pundits. I don't want to hear anymore from the media. The only team that was good in that era and good in that division is the New York Knicks. Like that was the only team I felt like. I mean, unless I'm missing a team, obviously the Shaq and Penny, they were a young team. They were babies at the time, so I don't really look at them as like
Yeah.
this dominant team yet. But the New York Knicks was the only team that was good enough to beat the Chicago Bulls, and I think that to me is the most hypocritical and the biggest hypocrisy I felt like in this documentary, in my opinion. And just kind of reviewing it and looking back at every single team, it's the same thing. Like there's no competition. It's not like the West. I think the West was a lot harder then, and it's still harder
Yeah,
now. And the fact that the media and all these pundits tried to make it seem like the East was some sort of magical glory, East is hypocritical and it's laughable to me. I think it is.
it's terrible. It's terrible. Like the Reggie Miller, Rick Smith's Pacers. Come on, man. How is that team going to take down Rodman, Jordan, Pippen, Paxson? It's not happening. Not only did he play in a conference as weak as LeBron's East, but he had a super team the whole time. LeBron didn't even have a super team the whole time. I know I'm talking about LeBron and we're talking about Jordan, but I like when you bring up Jordan, you have to bring up LeBron because those are the two greatest players that when we talk about the GOAT. So to me, it's just gross that the media can try and spin this terrible narrative about LeBron playing in the Eastern Conference or whatever, and that he cakewalked to 8 finals when that's just not true. And Jordan did the same thing to 6 finals, but with a better team around him the whole time.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I think the Miami Heat, LeBron James teams were really good, and obviously had the superstars that that brought them such success. But like you, I mean, I kind of make a comparison for both guys. They both played in a conference that had at least one good team, and that's the team that they always faced. I mean, the Indiana Pacers were a good team back then. I'm not saying that they were the New York Knicks or anything like that, but when you talk about all the teams, like every single team from the East, it's the same competition. It's the same kind of ordeal that Michael Jordan faced, the same ordeal that LeBron faced. So I don't want to hear it anymore from these pundits, and even just looking at it, like I just don't want to hear it anymore. I don't want to hear that Michael Jordan played in a tougher conference when, in fact, in all actuality, it's about the same. To be honest, I mean, we can do stats, we can do comparisons. I mean, I know a lot of people and old heads are going to get mad about me saying that, but what I don't get is that it honestly feels like the same. I mean, was that Charlotte Hornets team that they beat, or that New Jersey Nets team that they beat, was that any better than the teams that LeBron faced in the first or second round? In these finals, especially in Cleveland, or even when he was in Miami Heat, like it's the same.
Yeah, I'll do you one better. They're worse than the teams LeBron faced. Like the 60-win team Hawks are way better than that Hornets team or that Nets team. Same with the 60-win Raptors. Like that team was actually good. LeBron just made them look bad.
Yeah, and it just kind of goes to show you, and I won't go that far. But I think just like you, like what I think that's the frustrating part about this whole thing. And obviously, this documentary does no favors for LeBron's and LeBron fans. The fact that there's no NBA being played right now. Obviously, hopefully, we'll get some NBA coming soon. But this documentary kind of, I would say, hurts LeBron James in a way, just because of the fact that a lot of people that were kind of on the fence or indifferent, or even some LeBron fans, are going to try and be like, well, looking at this documentary, and it kind of goes back to what you say, the propaganda of Michael Jordan. It kind of shows these fans like, look, Michael Jordan was good, and I think a lot of fans are going to start turning on LeBron James, unjustifiably, because I'm one of those guys that I want to wait until LeBron James' career is over before we start talking about it. But just even being fair and comparing them now, like the competition they faced was about the same.
Except for when they reached the finals, I can at least say for sure LeBron's competition was better.
Yeah,
But facing that Warriors team is ridiculous. It's ridiculous, and then it's disingenuous to go, well, 3-6 versus 6-0. Like, okay, guys, because Michael would have beat that Warriors team. Okay, let's just chalk it off like that. It doesn't make sense.
Yeah, and speaking of the competition in the NBA Finals, that this was another episode where it talked about another finals that we have to mention, and that is of course against the Seattle Supersonics, with the Rain Man, with Gary Payton, the glove, and just kind of that ordeal. Just kind of looking at the Supersonics there, it hurts my heart to know that that team is still not in the NBA right now. I think another frustrating part was that I also watched Sonic skate again. Probably not a good idea if you're trying to not get angry at the NBA for what they did to our team. Um, I mean, I kind of just want to talk about that, but let's just talk about the Michael Jordan part first, and then we'll kind of go back to it. What did you make of like the Gary Payton stuff? Because Michael Jordan did his signature laugh. It looks like to like whatever tablet that they're using. I don't know. It's like an extra long tablet that I don't even know if it's like a Microsoft Surface or if it's like an iPad Pro or whatever it is.
Man, it's some crazy billionaire shit. That's what that is. That's some shit only MJ could get. But I think George Karl fumbled the bag by not putting Gary Payton on MJ from the start. And I thought it was funny that, I mean, both things can be true. I think MJ was obviously in a different headspace with Father's Day going on and everything. That makes complete sense. But also, I do think Gary Payton was a good defender and bothered him.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you in that aspect. That I think Gary Payton's a great defender, obviously one of the best in the league that we've ever seen. And I think, like you said, both can be true. Both Michael Jordan could have, just had a bad game, thinking about something else in a different headspace, and also Gary Payton shut him down. I think the thing is that in the NBA, you are not going to be shutting anybody down. I'm sorry. The whole purpose of defense in the NBA is just to slow the person down, slow them from making and getting to that point that they're usually accustomed to getting. So if Michael Jordan was accustomed to getting 28 points a game, if you can slow that process down throughout the whole game, then you've done your job. And I think that even Tony Allen, one of the best defenders that I've seen play in the league, and many other defenders like him, can tell you that, I'm not going to be shutting down anybody all the time, but my whole purpose is to slow them down, make them angry, and make them make more mistakes than they normally do.
Exactly, yeah, to make things hard for them. Because at that level, you can't shut anybody down. Everybody's too good. Everybody's shooting 40% from three in this era. Everyone's too good to shut down. But yeah, if you can make their job harder, then you've done your job. Which is why I think if George Karl had put Gary Payton on MJ from the start, between him going through what he was going through and Gary Payton being an excellent defender, they might have won that series or had a better shot at winning it.
Yeah, and even just speaking on the George Karl part, the fact that he didn't say hi to Michael Jordan, and I don't know if Jordan was with his agent or if he was with Tim Grover. The fact that he didn't say hi to him also kind of fueled his fire. Just kind of like I love George Karl, but he's also kind of one of those coaches that makes some crucial mistakes at times, and it's the reason why that Denver Nuggets team that he coached with Carmelo Anthony and all them didn't win that Western Conference final, just due to some situations in that aspect. Not going to disrespect him as a coach. I think he's a great coach, but at the same time, George Karl is prone to making those mistakes, and I think that it just kind of goes to show you that the simple and the most smallest minute details of coaching could cost your team greatly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, I think George Karl is a great coach too, but like you said, he has his mess ups or whatever you want to call them. I think when I watched that Gary Payton part where he asked him, I want you to be a scorer, not be a defender, or George Karl told him that, it made me think, is this what he told Melo? Did he tell Melo, I only want you to score? I want to use you as a scorer purely? Because I feel like if he had been more like a Greg Pop and pushed him towards being a two-way player, we would have seen a completely different Melo. Maybe they make it to that finals out of the Western Conference Finals.
Yeah, I mean, like you talked about with George Karl, I think that, like you said, great coach. Just the small mistakes kind of cost his team. And speaking of costing a team, the one thing that kind of frustrates me is the fact that the Supersonics still don't have a team. And I know that a lot of people, after this episode aired, were still wondering why the Seattle Supersonics have not had a team yet. And just kind of watching Sonics Gate again, I know this is going to be an off-tangent thing, talking about Sonics Gate. It still frustrates me to this day, the fact that the Supersonics still don't have a team, and the fact that Clay Bennett kind of screwed up and screwed over the city of Seattle with the way that he kind of went about getting that team. And and I know, like I said, it's a tight tangent. It's not anything to do with The Last Dance, but it's still frustrating to me that the city of Seattle has yet to have a team. And I honestly think that due to the fact that we had a legal battle with the NBA, I do feel like, especially with David Stern, may he rest in peace, the fact that I think he blacklisted the city of Seattle from ever having a team.
Wow, you think so?
I mean, the fact that the NBA had to go to court to fight for, getting the team out, fighting about the lease. I mean, all the stuff that went on that I learned in the documentary and just kind of reading the articles and some of the legal stuff. I honestly think that David Stern was very upset with the city of Seattle because, one, they weren't willing to make a new arena for the Seattle Supersonics after they did for the Mariners and after they did for the Seahawks. It's kind of a waste of money for the Mariners, in my opinion. But nevertheless, it's still frustrating that we didn't do it. But I can't blame the city of Seattle when taxpayers don't have, when billionaire owners are making so much money and they can just build. I mean, that's just another tangent that I'm probably going on. But they have enough money to build these arenas themselves. They don't need our money to build it. But if it goes to helping the community, then I'm fine with it. I mean, this is just my opinion. I know this, like you said, this is going way off topic.
I mean, I'm with it. We deserve a team, so I'm all here for it. I could go on the same tangent. We deserve a team. Yeah,
and it's just kind of what's frustrating to me is that the city of Oklahoma and the Oklahoma City Thunder actually had a record loss of money. They lost money this year as an NBA franchise. Meanwhile, they were claiming and clamoring that the city of Oklahoma was going to be a big franchise market, and look at where they're at right now. Obviously Chris Paul is balling out and doing his thing in Oklahoma City, but I'm sure Thunder's fans, especially when they had those three guys in Westbrook, Harden, and Durant, I'm sure they weren't expecting to lose all of them and then end up with egg on their face, which is what happened with Clay Bennett.
Exactly. I can tell you if we had Chris Paul and Steven Adams, Shai Gilgeous, Gallinari up here hooping in Seattle, that team probably would have made a lot more money,
I even think having the Kevin Durant, James Harden, and Westbrook here in Seattle would have made a huge difference. And actually, probably we would have kept at least Kevin Durant, in my opinion, because I think, Kevin Durant was a huge fan favorite. And, kind of
the city would have showed him love, yeah.
And just kind of like thinking about it, like maybe Durant wouldn't feel so empty inside himself with like trying to kind of feel that like I don't have a city that's behind me. Seattle would have been behind him, and I think, like we talked about, it's a missed opportunity. And I think I know this is just my opinion when I talk about David Stern blacklisting the city of Seattle. I just think that. Looking at it, I think that he really hates the city of Seattle just for what they did to the NBA and making them waste resources on legal cases here in Seattle rather than just saying, okay, we're just going to give you the team and we'll let you leave.
Yeah, I could definitely see that, and it would make sense because we've been clamoring for a team for how many years now? Like 15 years.
I mean, they left what? They left in 2008, and it's been what? It's 2020. I mean, like, it's such a long time.
Okay, yeah.
It's such a long time without a franchise.
Yeah, it's ridiculous, especially for a city that puts out prospects in the league repeatedly, and we have some of the best, like, older generation and new generation. We just have so many hoopers in the league. We deserve a team,
Yeah,
and our basketball
yeah,
amazing. Oh, go ahead.
No, I mean, like I was gonna say, like you talked about, we put out so many hoopers out here in Seattle. I mean, in the conference that we play in that Kinko Metro kind of tournament, the Sea King tournament, we face those type of teams, and we see those NBA caliber players. They are so good. And it's kind of frustrating to me that those guys don't have like a city or a home that they can go to once they're done hooping and playing in front of their home fans. I mean, Seattle is such a big market these last couple of years. I mean, we saw what happened with the Seahawks once the city got behind them. Obviously, the Mariners are still bad as usual. Maybe one day they'll get good. Obviously, they signed Robinson Cano, and that didn't end up happening. And it just kind of goes to show. I would sacrifice the Mariners if we can get the Sonics. I know a lot of
in a heartbeat.
I know a lot of Mariners fans are going to be upset with that one, but um, the Sonics are such a historic franchise, and I think what I find frustrating is that the city of Oklahoma took that history away from us, and I'm hoping that whatever franchise we get, we can get that history back because I think that we deserve that history. One, and two, those championships and those retirement banners, especially because I'm talking about the Last Dance episode with Gary Payton, his jersey hasn't yet been retired, and that's because he wants to retire it in Seattle, which I don't blame him at all. And I wish that the NBA would do a favor for us. I think Adam Silver should really look into it. I know that they're looking into expanding the league at times, and obviously the Key Arena is now being renovated finally after so many years. That is now going to officially, host a hockey team and also a basketball team. It's going to be an arena created for fans by fans for sport, and maybe one day Key Arena can return as also a high school venue as well for the tournament, which would be cool to see. But like I talked about, this is such a tangent about the Seattle Supersonics. What I just find frustrating about this whole thing, just kind of watching it, just brought out those emotions, and it boils my blood to know that the Supersonics are still, one, not here, and two, that the league is taking their damn time. They're taking so long to put a team out here. I know that guys like Kevin Garnett have said his dream is to buy a team and put it in Seattle.
That's so dope to me. And it's great to me that players understand how much Seattle means to basketball culture. Kevin Love said the same thing. Like he said, Seattle deserves a team. I saw Joe Budden says we deserve a team. Everybody knows Hoopers come from Seattle. Our basketball culture is tight. But instead, the league is more focused on trying to figure out a way to make the Knicks more marketable, even though they suck, than giving a place that's super marketable, like Seattle, a team.
Yeah, I mean I agree 1,000% with you. I mean the Knicks, the way that the Knicks are going to change and become the mecca of basketball again is if you get rid of James Dolan. And if the NBA is smart, they would do it. They would get rid of him. They would get rid of everybody that's associated with James Dolan in Madison Square Garden management. And this could be a video, and maybe we should talk about it in a separate video, Brad. I would love to kind of talk about it with you and kind of get your perspective on it because I have my take and I want to get your take on it.
Oh yeah.
Maybe do you want to talk about it now, or should we talk about it in a different video?
I think a different video, but I will just say James Dolan is terrible. He's easily the worst owner in the NBA, maybe NBA history, next to Donald Sterling.
Yeah, and hopefully James Dolan can get banned just for the fact that I think he's lost the Knicks a lot of money potentially throughout his tenure as a NBA owner. But like you said, I mean, when it comes to the city and culture of Seattle, when it comes to basketball, just because it rains a lot here, people are inside hooping, whether it's at the YMCA, whether it's at LA Fitness, or whether it's a local gym somewhere. The city of Seattle and basketball is so strong here. It's so awesome to watch and go to different places. It's funny, just kind of even going different ways. I mean, if you go more south of Seattle, you're going to get a different style of basketball. When you go more north of Seattle, you get a different style. Like, that's the cool thing about Seattle that I find different than any other place in the world is that there are different styles of basketball depending on where you go. And, all those styles work and all those styles get you to especially in the high school setting, they get you to the big dance. They get you to the Tacoma Dome. Which instead of the Kingdom, which was back then. But like you said, I mean, there's such a culture here for basketball, and it's frustrating. And I know that this is so off topic from The Last Dance, but
we deserve this.
But it's just so frustrating to see that Key Arena, the way it was back then. I don't know if it was called Key Arena back then. I'd have to look at that history. Like I said, I find frustrating that basketball is yet to return, especially NBA basketball is yet to return in Seattle.
Yeah, I completely agree. It's pretty heartbreaking. You deserve it. Even Game of Zones shouted out Seattle.
Yeah, and Game of Zones a great watch. Sasquatch is still probably out there with his jersey and his uniform out there, still lurking around. Hopefully, an NBA team will come back. But anyway, Brad, that is going to be today's end of the episode. You know, we talked a lot about Michael Jordan and talked about the conspiracy theory. We talked about his competitiveness, his kind of the way that he acted around teammates. We talked about the second episode. I mean, the last thing I'll add to that is the fact, I think what was kind of something that we didn't get was the audio of Michael Jordan crying after the 96 championship. That was kind of memorable to see and kind of cool to
Oh
watch
yeah,
that, you
definitely.
know, the emotion that was poured out after winning it on Father's Day was really cool.
That was dope to me. Another thing I'll add was I thought that MJ getting the best players in the league together to play at Warner Bros was insane. That was super cool to me.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me of like the I can't remember if it's Lifetime Fitness or whatever fitness center that the NBA players go to in New York and LA to play pickup games with one another. It kind of, but I think what's cool about this is that, like you said, Michael Jordan built a whole freaking arena
Yeah.
just
Bro, he
to
was a god.
just to work out and play basketball. I mean, could you imagine like just an ordinary person asking like just an ordinary person asking for that kind of requirement? I mean, people are going to say no, you're foolish. So
They're gonna laugh at you.
we're not going to build you an arena or a little place so you can go hoop with your friends and work out. You're gonna do your work. You're gonna like it,
Yeah.
and then you're gonna be done. But you know that goes to show you the popularity and the clout that Michael Jordan had, especially in the '90s at an all-time high. I mean, he still has it, but like at an all-time high. And I think, like you said, it's cool to watch, and I'm glad that they had film of it, of just these
hmm
NBA hoopers just hooping it up at Warner Brothers.
At Warner Brothers, that's insane to me. That's absolutely insane.
Do you think that that was a ploy for Michael Jordan to kind of study his adversaries? You think?
Oh yeah, I thought they said it in the documentary. It was him and Tim Grover, I think. It was a good way
Yeah,
for him to, because since he was getting back into the game, to kind of pick apart his opponents, realize what they do, favorite go-to moves, tendencies. That's really smart, and it's a good way to stay in shape.
exactly. And like you said, I mean, it's an awesome way to stay in shape. It's a great way to study your opponent, learn their different moves. Maybe they secretly filmed it so they could study it, but nevertheless,
Oh my God.
that's just rumors. That's not something that's true. I'm just putting it out there. But like you said, it's an awesome thing to watch. It's a cool thing to see. But like I said earlier, Brad, this is going to be the end of the episode. Like we talked about episode 7 and 8, and we also talked a little bit about the NBA prospects and what they're going to be doing in the combine. Do you have any last words before we head out, Brad?
Anyone looking towards our next video on NBA prospects, check out Isaac Okoro. He's a hooper.
All right. Anyway, guys, like I said, my name is Bernie. This is Brad, either up above or on the side. Like, it just keeps changing on me whether when I'm editing videos. I'm gonna find a way. I think I want to
Uh,
find a way to overlay or something like that. But like, I just keep going on tangents. I have some sort of a problem right now. But anyway, guys, like I said, this is the end of the video. My name is Bernie. This is Brad. Catch us on the next episode, talking about different things. We'll also try and have that James Dolan, the New York Knicks, want to be more marketable, and we'll talk about that at a later date. But like I said, we'll catch you in the next video. Peace.